George in Ecommerce Brokers has been amazing with regards to communication. He was, even though we were on a different time zone, he was always very responsive and answering questions, updating me on kind of new potential buyers, and for the buyers that we did engage with, providing constant communication throughout the process. And very consistent with that communication. So was very pleased with the communication as a whole. George was instrumental in kind of like chatting with me and then negotiating deal structure and kind of like what was important for me as a seller to the buyer. But then also as we were kind of potentially looking at maybe potential multiple offers for the business, George was able to kind of identify, the buyer that was the most serious, that had the most financial capacity to be able to close in a quick time frame, to be able to leverage them, and also the potential upside of other offers that we had, to be able to chat through with the buyers. George even met with the buyer in person during the due diligence period. That was very helpful in kind of not convincing, but being able to chat with them on the value of the business and the type of business that they are interested in acquiring, but also discussing what the deal structure would be helpful in closing the deal, but also that would make kind of the seller, me, happy from that perspective. I think the legal portion was pretty straightforward and smooth. I think obviously that has a lot to do with the buyer and seller and what they're nitpicking on specific terms or those types of things. So I think, one thing that helped is we laid everything out in the LOI. But then two, I think, both of us had the trust to be able to work together and, not nitpick everything in the agreement itself, but know that we both wanted to successfully transact on the business. And I think that was helpful from a legal perspective. I think George handled that kind of like financing kind of blip, if you will, well. He was able to kind of let them know the expectations, like, look, this is what we agreed upon, and this is also one of the reasons why you were selected as the buyer. And so, being able to make sure that you do have the proper funding to be able to close the deal was kind of properly communicated. And I think George was able to work with them and, communicate with me as the seller of, look, like, this is something that happens. And, we just need a couple more days to not make sure that none of us are freaking out or anything like that. But to give them the opportunity to truly make good on their word and desire to close on the deal. So I think it was handled very well and very professionally, and ultimately achieving kind of the end goal for both parties, which is to close on the transaction. So we were able to successfully do that as a whole. So I would definitely recommend Ecommerce Brokers to any buyer or seller. I think, George and his team have a huge network, I think, which is good, which is an international network. So not just, here in the US where I am, but an international network. Overall, I thought George was very professional in the dealings and very easy to work with, and has experience in buying and selling businesses. So there were even questions that, I had during this process, even though I sold a previous business, that he was able to advise in kind of the e-commerce and agency space, which was helpful. So yeah, I would definitely recommend them. And I've appreciated all that went into the work for us and closing the sale of our business.